No,
So
look,
don't
you
say
can't
anything.
I'm telling you, this could be totally nothing like it used to be. And you weren't here when they used to have it on Channel
I
8.
think he was saying that.
Oh my, you remember though?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, we'll see.
So,
But I can't.
Tell me this, and I don't have the address. There's a new business that's going to be in there in the capital. It's a new business in Benton, but I don't know if it's in Benton Township. Called
everybody walk
before
That's
the
the
Rocky
problem.
Stream Western. They have Tennessee
You got 2 hours.
and stuff. A trailer. It's on Copex, but it's Copex going through a chain.
That's right. I said, bring that
That
up.
sounds good. Yeah, I was wondering.
This is, once you get back to
I get you.
Okay.
Benefit.
Yeah, because I saw, I've seen the trailer, and I was just wondering, like, okay.
Does anyone know what happened to the bungalow in Bigstone where the pop-up restaurant would show up on at night?
They're not, she's not doing anything.
This one, all the one pipes.
Just like mom.
The one that
just
used
like
to,
mom.
no, the one that used to be Buntings.
Oh,
Over by the,
they do stuff there?
well, they were all summer and now, and there was a for sale by owner sign. Now the sign's gone and the windows are all opened up.
And they're working on the
So
post
I'm wondering if
office and the
they've
federal government right now.
The food any good?
I never went, but it was always busy.
Oh.
And
Who was
they started out with a trailer next to the barber shop.
it? I made
They
some
were
copies of
busy
the
there.
agenda already, Clerk.
You said what?
I had already made it, like 7 copies of the agenda.
Oh,
Can we have, she's got hers.
She might have, you got copies too,
a what?
of the agenda?
You gotta have a plan. You just can't be held skill.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
I didn't even know they were doing anything.
I think.
It's interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Long time ago, we was talking
Well, we'll see, because I think.
You got to look up
After that, I
No, leave me alone.
Well,
No, why? Leave me alone.
What are you
I
talking
would
about?
Leave me alone. You already know what I'm doing.
What?
That's the
What did I
only
do? I've done absolutely nothing.
Huh?
that's
I've
crazy,
done absolutely nothing.
Is that so?
but it's, truth is stranger than.
Bishop.
Keep
How you
looking.
doing?
All right.
You can't make this stuff up.
Not even in suspend your, you know.
Not even with the great
No.
imagination.
Yeah, I can make a copy, I can make a
The whole
copy.
packet?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
Not.
How much should I do?
Have a color.
You know.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Unless people don't tell me, I don't make her copies, and that's what the power of assuming that.
I don't know how.
Unless you tell me, I don't make it, but you say you are copies from now? Do you need to know? Because I'll make myself a note. Yeah, I need, yeah, you gotta tell me. Did you, your application, did you get it? Get it back? Did you
We all get together and talk about it. It ain't nothing to gossip right now.
No, but it is definitely, it's a color.
Here's a color version. There you got a color version.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we gotta keep it anyway. Show up in the next 2 minutes. How are you?
Yeah. Yeah, Mark, and then I sent my mail directly.
Yeah, it was a pretty good weekend. Lucky.
So, I can either give you another copy of hers, or she can send it back. Okay, so when we get down here, you'll
Go
come.
away or
Nah,
just around?
Okay.
stay around. You know, Super Bowl,
Yeah,
watch live sports.
You gonna be back?
yeah, that was a game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I know you told me that you were going to, it depends on you.
Wow.
Cause you depends on us. That's the thing.
Police that.
You're reliable and you're knowledgeable.
I had,
And there's nothing wrong with that.
adventure
That's
night
what
on
I'm
the
saying.
town Friday.
So he can really depend on you.
Karaoke at
And
Vegas.
you told him, he remembered, you said that you would fly back.
That was an experience.
It's okay, have a lot of fun.
Oh, everybody loves to perform.
Not me.
You didn't do it?
I didn't
I'm
do
just
it.
giving you a
Not
hard
this
time,
time.
but I was.
Come on, you just laughed at everybody else.
I did. Some of them were really good.
Well, I know.
Yeah, so that was entertaining, but then some were so bad. That was entertaining.
That was entertaining too. I know that. Oh, I love to go to karaoke. Yeah, we used to do it all the time. But they got a friend of mine's got a machine at home, and they are so loud. I'm like, hey, the house is not ready.
I'm serious.
I mean, whoa.
Well,
I have the entire packet if you need actual copies of everything, just a couple of things, stand up and that's the entire packet.
Oh, the entire
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'll get you one.
On the regular, on the average.
I know you want one too.
She bringing it.
Yeah, I'm gonna get her a copy.
Really? A lot? Where's some? Oh.
I like this one better.
Yeah.
Black and white. It had it. Y'all wait for the paper. I'll say that.
You wouldn't believe. Yeah. I think I remember reading last year, was it last year? I seen it on the news. I won't. I would, okay. Okay.
Thank you for those things.
I have a, no, you need to, is that, hi, how are you before we go there? Hi, how are you? Cause you have to come to me, I'll.
Got my
You don't want to be.
got a
No,
promotion.
Well,
Let me write myself a note. Yeah, once you leave, that's fine.
Chairman.
Leave.
Okay.
But I can get it for you by tomorrow, I promise you.
Now it'll go down in here and say, no, he is the chairman.
I'll make sure I know. Yeah, so you want
You know,
I can leave you.
I'm but I was going through, I think I might have mentioned, I found some documents from Whirlpool submitted the original site plan for approval. And they, whoever wrote the newspaper article about it quoted me with somebody else's name, someone I've never heard of or seen anywhere, not on the planning commission, nowhere. I have no idea who that person was. And so I was happy not to be quoted. But I was just so
You knew
surprised.
that you had said that.
I know I had said that because when I was describing what was happening in the room, with trying to get a quorum together, the chairman couldn't act. The vice chairman resigned in the process.
Look, I got no hair.
I was the secretary, I was moved up to vice chairman, and then I had to run the meeting. And other people wouldn't stay in the room so you could have a meeting. And the Whirlpool and the cameras and the lawyers, and they're all standing in the back of the room screaming at us.
Okay, we are ready to begin.
It was quite a challenge just to get through that.
Yeah.
And then get a full package.
Here's another one. I know, here's another one. Maybe that's another one. I don't know, you got me confused.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, I'll
So I
change.
said,
Commissioner,
Okay.
I'll correct.
I just.
Yeah.
Let's go, they corrected.
I did not get a promotion.
Ready for roll?
I'd like to call the meeting to order, the Ben Harbor Planning Commission meeting of February the 4th, 2020. Would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Henry,
Present.
Commissioner McGee,
Present.
Commissioner Marshall. City Manager Mitchell,
Here.
Commissioner Hensel,
Here?
Chairman Reed.
Present. Has anyone had an opportunity to read the agenda? Are there any corrections, omissions, deletions? Hearing none, we will call the roll for approval.
We need a motion.
Motion to approve.
So moved? Or you're making?
I don't make motions.
It can't be.
We need a motion.
So moved?
Motion to approve the agenda, supported by Commissioner Hensel. Call the roll, please.
City Manager Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
Commissioner Henry,
Yes.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Hensel,
Yes?
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Has everyone had an opportunity to read and review the minutes of our January 7th meeting? Are there any corrections, omissions, or deletions?
There's one correction that will be made, and I think it's the first.
Under the agenda?
Of the minutes that will be corrected. No change.
Need a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda. With the proper corrections.
Motion by Commissioner Henry,
McGee,
McGee, supported by Commissioner Marshall.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
City Manager Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hensel,
Yes?
Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
Commissioner Henry,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'd like to open up public comments at this time. Anybody from the public would like to have a comment, please step forward.
Thank you, Commissioners. Peter Kolovis, Prairie Real Estate Group, 330 West Main Street. Continue to come before you to discuss the situation at 300 West Main at the AEP substation. We have seen no further activity. I came before you last time and the time before that and the time before that to ask for a status update as to what they're planning on doing with the site. For all intents and purposes, they've abandoned the project. I'm sure that they have some interest in what's going on there. However, with the fill that they've put in and their lack of ability to strike that, it's not an ability, it's their lack of finishing the project, there is no drainage and it continues to flood the surrounding properties. There has been standing water there. We have had reeds growing there. With the backup of the storm system on Main Street, we have fish living in the pond next to AEP. So right now, there are standing test wells. Groundwater is at the surface. AEP is not responding to our correspondence. We have sent them email after email. We have sent them voicemail. We have tried to get to them through the drain commissioner. I've met with Representative Wenzel last Friday, met with Senator Lasada as well to try to put pressure on the situation, but we have had no response, and I have no understanding as to what their intentions are. And if they are going to move forward, they need to put the drainage that was agreed to. But it is from my analysis and from what we hear from the street that they're not going to proceed, or they're looking at other sites, but whatever they've left in place cannot stand. I can't imagine that the permit is still valid. It's well over the year that they've stopped working on the property. It continues to flood, and it is clearly making matters worse. So there is no drainage, there's no retention, there's no access to 10th Street, there's no access to Main Street. And the water that is shedding off their property is caused a great deal of damage to our property, our asphalt, our grounds. It is causing incredible, thank God we've had a very light winter because it only is frozen a couple times, but our vegetation is completely dead and all of our drainage around it is soaking wet. So happy to take questions if you'd like. Otherwise, it is really a dire situation, and I'm asking you, somebody, to look into it and to deal with the situation and this ongoing open permit. That you obviously cannot just start a project and then abandon it without restoring it. And that's what I'm asking for, restoration of the project. Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
Sure.
Does anybody else wish to speak? We'll close the public comment and we'll move on to old business. First thing on the agenda for old business is the monthly absence report. Mayor and Commissioner Shaw absent at this time. I received nothing from Commissioner Shaw to indicate whether or not he will be present today. The mayor, of course, can ad hoc meets at his own discretion. Have any questions or discussions concerning the attendance? Hearing none, we'll move on to the update on the contingency approvals. Building official near pass, have you had an opportunity to talk with anyone from AEP concerning their intentions?
The only thing that I have received from them was a letter saying that they've abandoned the project, and I haven't heard any anymore.
Mr. Chair, we did also, I had the engineers do some research on what was happening with that project. They haven't been able to come back with anything, and we talked with MDOT a couple of weeks ago too, let them know that that was probably contributing to that flooding. And haven't gotten anything back from them yet, but they said they would look at it also.
The overall issue with flooding is quite widespread downtown. Have we had anybody to look at the overall or big picture of what could potentially be done?
MDOT is working on the overall picture. They've hired a consultant, and we'll have a report very shortly for the commission.
Thank you. Any discussion concerning AEP's role in all of this? Yes, sir. Recognize Commissioner Marshall.
I would suggest that we send APE, or I think it's APE.
Yes.
I would suggest that we send them a letter to have them come before the commission and explain why they haven't did anything and how they intend to compensate the adjacent property owners for the damage that their property is causing. And if they don't come before us and explain that, I suggest that we rescind the permit.
The manager, Mitchell, is this something that you might be able to look into?
It is.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Johnson, you recognize.
On a separate but related issue, for those people who were able to make it, there was a workshop that was done for public officials by FEMA on flooding and the new flooding maps that they're creating for Berrien County. And through that discussion, it was mentioned that Berrien County's plan for mitigation is not up to date. I think, what is it called, FIP, is that right? So it's not up to date, which means that in some of these cases where we have damage to our infrastructure, we might be able to write grants to them for infrastructure improvements to mitigate the damage. We would not be able to do that until the county updates their plan. So first of all, the source of money will be there at some point if we needed it to repair something, but I don't know if the city can advocate that the county emergency preparedness people get their plan updated. It's been expired for a year.
Mhm.
So that directly affects all the municipalities and can affect individuals at some point in the future.
City manager, were you able to attend that meeting with the flood mitigation updates?
Not the one he's talking about.
Okay. Um, It'd be possible for you to reach out to the county to find out where they're at with that.
I was getting ready to say, I'll get with the commissioner and so on, we'll talk about it.
Oh, extensive, okay. Could you provide me with that information as soon as you get it?
Sure will.
So we get out in front of the next meeting before something else comes up. Okay. Building official in your pass, is there any other information that you want to provide on the contingency approval or updates?
On the what?
The contingency approval and updates, anything that we need to discuss concerning that?
What's the status
That's what.
on each of the projects?
Can we go through the list?
Do you have your list?
What?
Could we give him a copy of the list? Does he have one?
I got
It
that.
was emailed to him. I don't have an extra copy with me.
Okay.
Here, use someone else's, borrow that.
Oh,
Is there somewhere? Or did you give me yours? No, there it is. Yeah.
so we're going about the first one? You want going now?
Yes, let me review this with you. 6 June 6, 2017, the rezoning application for the 420 for Joseph Bullocks. I believe at the last meeting, we indicated that he was in the process of transferring that property to somebody else, or it had been sold.
It's,
Do you know definitely for sure the status of the property?
no, other than what they're wanting to do there, they can't do.
Okay, have you noticed whether or not there's still any business taking place there?
Well, first of all, like the guy says, it's been a restaurant there for years. I don't know how it ever got approval the first time because there's not enough room there for parking, first of all. And then there's water standing in the street. So, and of course, the drive-in window was eliminated. And so, but that can't go forward at all anywhere right now because they cannot get approval. I won't pass anything. Let them go on
So
with
the
that because
recommendation at this
it's
time.
not able to be done.
So what are we, excuse me, Mr. Chair, what are we going to do as far as trying to get them into compliance, aside from, we know that we won't issue any, permits to occupy the place or open the business, but that doesn't seem to have stopped someone from doing that and now telling you the restaurant's been open for years, so what's the problem? So how do we get compliance with the site plan that we approved, let alone with what actually is required by the building code and all the rest of that?
Well, they've been working with us on that, but it can't go any further until we are getting stuff done. It's got to go before when we get stuff written out to where you know, we can give it to you so you know what's going on. But right now, they're trying to push that onto us, you know, and no, it's not gonna happen.
What I'm trying to determine is whether or not they're in business.
No, they're not.
Okay. At the last meeting, we mentioned that they were doing catering. They weren't doing business with the general public. So if they're using it as a commissary or a kitchen, is that a permitted activity?
I believe that would be a permitted activity as long as they're not serving people there at the building.
Okay.
Because they've got all the equipment to do that.
But the site does not comply with the site plan.
In
So,
other words, they never, I'm sorry,
go ahead.
continue. From my observation, they never put in the sidewalks, they never paved the
They have not done any of
property,
that.
there was no landscaping. There's absolutely nothing done that they said they would do except build that particular building where they put it.
Right.
So what we want them to do is be in compliance with the existing application. If not, we withdraw it. Is that the proper procedure?
That's a proper receipt.
Okay. At this point, what alternatives do we have other than asking them to come forth and say what they're gonna do with the property?
Well, we made that request. There's nobody here.
Okay. Discussion, anybody?
I have a question. So what are the neighbors in the neighborhood supposed to think about this mud flat with a building partially constructed in the middle of it as a restaurant without the elements that are in the site plan in place? If, you know, people who live on Colby Street are, you know, forced to deal with a nuisance. Not to mention that the Pipestone Street is a gateway from I-94 into downtown and the rest of our city. So we want that to look as good as it can possibly look.
We need to hear what they have to say, that's for sure.
Okay, then I would recommend that we attempt to contact them to find out what exactly they intend to do and let them know at this time. I believe their permit would have expired. It's been over a year. Matter of fact, it's been 2.5 years since we.
Yeah, it's been expired.
So they should be informed that they're not supposed to be conducting any type of business out of there.
I haven't seen them do anything out of there.
Okay.
I drive by there every day.
So
I'm not by there in the evenings, but
other than being a nuisance, and they're not in compliance or not conducting a business there, is there any legal thing that we can do to, how to say, clean up the property? Or do anything that they've had requested the permit to do?
I'm sure we can send them a notice.
Okay. Let's do that then. We're gonna send them a notice. Come forth, explain why they're out of compliance.
They've come in and talked, I think they come in and talked to Darlene, I wasn't there. They're not gonna get anywhere with Darlene. She won't let them do anything that's not right.
So,
We'll make sure that happens. And get a full report to you.
thank you. Moving on to the next, we had approval for a site plan review for Cornerstone Alliance. Have we had any feedback from Cornerstone at all as to whether or not they're in compliance with all of these landscaping, lighting, applicable signage, and oil runoff information? That also is 2.5 years old.
I haven't heard from them at all.
Have you notified them?
I have not.
Okay. Could we
Yes.
have a follow-up? Okay, city manager will follow up. Okay. The next one is the site plan review for the 300 West Main Street Power Substation. I believe we've discussed that there will be a follow-up on that already by the city manager.
So just, Mr. Chair, to be clear, they will be notified that they can't do anything more with the site until they come back and with a plan for whatever it is they're gonna do, because this is expired. So they're gonna have to pay another $1,200 and come before you with a new plan that we can evaluate and approve.
I believe I got that plan, but on that original plan, there was plans for parking, so I don't understand why.
Or no, we're talking about 300 West Main. We moved on to that one. So,
On the site plan?
yeah, so the site plan was issued on 7/17/2018. So they're well out of date. And they haven't been continuously doing anything there. So at this point, the site plan isn't valid anymore.
On the plans that I have on my desk, it shows there's 87 spots for parking.
This is the
Long project.
E
substation.
Yeah, AEP.
I'm sorry, okay.
Station. You said you'd received a letter saying that they had abandoned.
They've abandoned that project. I
Okay,
haven't
then
heard
they need to
anything.
come forth and let us know whether or not they're gonna restore it to its original condition.
Right.
Way it is.
And a plan.
I'll get them a letter up tomorrow.
I know it's out of order, but could we get a copy of that letter? It's a property, without having to go through FOIA. Otherwise, I'll be happy to FOIA.
City manager, follow through.
I don't like that he gonna forward it when he's sitting here talking to me.
Well,
I'm
that,
sorry.
You can get a copy of the.
well, that is the procedure.
No, it's a procedure, and I don't want to be disrespectful to the procedure.
It's okay.
I'm trying not to be disrespectful.
You don't have to go through any problem. That's all I'm saying.
I wanna hear that when my black people ask for it. Yeah, boy is sitting on somebody's desk and nobody's responding to it, and then you give somebody a favor.
I beg your pardon?
You got FOIA sitting on the desk that nobody respond to, and then you give another citizen a favor. That, I don't like those kind of favors.
You said I have for you sitting on the desk.
Somebody got them, I don't know who got them.
Order. One at a time, please. I recognize
Thank
Commissioner Henry.
I'm sorry for speaking out of order, I just have to correct things when I think they're wrong.
Commissioner
I have no comment.
Marshall.
Yeah, I wanted to know, how do we plan to make sure that AEP do what they're supposed to do as far as making the city whole and the surrounding properties whole based on an idea that they had that fell through?
The building official should go to the site, review what's there to determine whether or not this is a condition in which it was before they did anything. And if they've changed anything, is this contributing to some of the issues and problems that we've noted? And if so, bring it to their attention that they need to correct it and restore it.
I wasn't here, when they pulled that out, but I understand that they brought fill dirt in and filled that. There was a pond there, so I don't understand how they got away with that.
Then that should be brought to the attention that they have created a problem or a nuisance and determine whether or not they intend to correct it.
You're right.
And we can depend upon the city manager to look into it to follow up,
Yes, sir.
which you've already indicated you would anyway. Okay. Yes. Okay, 8/20/2019 site plan review for the Novo. That's the 900 Rico property. We've already approved that. Has there been any changes or anything? They said that the parking spaces were already there. They simply needed to stripe them, mark them up.
Yeah, they gotta mark them up.
Okay, so we can remove that from, they are in compliance then.
And they're coming right along. They're inside now, putting up the walls. I did an inspection this morning, so they can go ahead and hang the drywall.
So we're removing that.
Yes, remove that item. December the 3rd, 2019 site plan application. Once again, we approved that for cannabis cultivation. Now, it came to was brought to our attention. I don't know if we see, or if you're the office department, that it would cost approximately $1 million, and it would take much more than 6 months to extend or hook up the city water, so they would be able to take advantage of that. Is that, I believe that came up at a city meeting, city commission meeting?
It did, Mr. Chair, and their agreement was at the time that such water becomes available, they would hook over to that water source.
Okay, so that's,
They got water there now.
yes,
Yeah.
from the county, I think,
Right.
township rather.
Township.
But yeah, they're willing to switch over.
Take that off the list.
We can take that one off the list. They
You
would
guys-
have to get a permit to do it anyway. I'm sorry, sir. Also, 12/3/2019 site plan application for cannabis processing. Okay, that's basically the same thing that we just discussed. So we can remove that one from the list. Now, were there any things that we did not cover that we should cover?
Mr. Chair, I noticed on our contingency list, it wouldn't be a contingency, but maybe it's time for an update on the site plan for the billboard that we declined. Is there any news about where that stands? And our moratorium on billboards, the clock has been ticking and we must be approaching a time where we'll need to renew it. I don't recall, but we said we would extend it for 6 months, or the city commission did with a recommendation. But we haven't made any progress yet on our ordinance. So,
We are discussing that at our legislative committee meeting tomorrow,
oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
so it's on our agenda.
And I will attend that meeting tomorrow, so I'll give you all an update.
That'll be good too.
Okay. All right.
Coming.
If there's no additional discussion concerning the contingency approvals, then we move on to old business C, update on the request for proposals, the zoning ordinance and master plan revision. At our last meeting, we discussed various options that potentially were available to us. And the director, Jennings, was supposed to come back with a report for us.
So I did get a chance to speak with Brett Hanlon, our RRC consultant through MEDC in regards to that technical assistance with them for the master planning process. And what his suggestion was, pretty much since we decided that we were interested in utilizing their funding, not necessarily their consultants to do the work, was just to let him know once the RFP has been finished and we can get the ball rolling. I can't remember if he said up to 70% of whatever the project cost is, but no matter how it goes, it's $30,000 in technical assistance to put towards the master plan. And that whether or not we utilize their consultants, we just let them know when we've gotten our RFP out and when we're ready to get the ball rolling. Now, I also reviewed the last RFP that was submitted, as well as the suggested scope of work and some things that MEDC sent to us. I believe I shared everything. If I haven't, I can with the clerk for you all for your review. For a comprehensive master plan as opposed to the master plan update, I believe that adding some elements of the scope of work that MEDC sent to our RFP will cover everything. I've looked at some other communities' full master plan RFPs as well. But I don't know, Chairman, do you and I need to meet to kind of flesh that out as well? So that will be next steps, fleshing that out and getting it together and then getting the clerk for the dates and getting that posted.
In view of the fact that the last time we issued our RFP, there were no applicants, I think we really need to take a look at who could potentially be some of the applicants that we could look into to determine who we think would be best qualified and make it known to them that we are requesting our RFP.
And something to consider too, so both the city of St. Joseph and the city of Niles, their planning departments just recently went through their master planning or their downtown planning, and they both were very satisfied with who their consultants were. So we might want to take a look at those consultants as well. We, like I said, don't have to utilize the MEDC suggested consultants, but if we want to ask them to push this RFP out as well or let the consultants know, we can do that. We're not beholden to using them though.
I just wondered if the MEDC had some people that they would recommend.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, that's what I was
Yes, they do.
basically referring to.
Mhm.
If they could help us get the word out, I'm not sure to what extent we reach and what would legally qualify as, us making it available to everybody. But I think we need to really get on this in light of the Twin Cities initiative. There's a lot of things going on in the city. There's a lot of private citizens talking about getting involved in the planning process. So I see a need for us to coordinate all of these activities. What I'll probably suggest is that we set up a advisory board and work with you and city management and the commission to find out where and what it is that we want to have done.
Right.
And then when we put together our request for proposals, we'd be in a much better position as to what it is we want to ask them to do. We're also concerned about the fact that if they're willing to give us $30,000 toward it, we still need to have a pretty good idea of what the overall cost would be before we put it out.
That's right.
To make sure that we don't come back with a number that may or may not work for us. Okay, did you all have anything you wanted to add to that? Next thing is, if we're going to set up an advisory, I think that's something we need to do right now. Are you all prepared to make a motion that we set up an advisory group to look into putting together this RFP, request for proposal?
Mr. Chair, are we talking about an ad hoc committee of the planning commission, or are we talking about a committee, like a standing committee that will include citizens and be a broader steering committee?
I'm not sure we're at that point yet.
Okay,
After we put out the request for the proposal, we have an idea of where we want to go, then I think that would be the appropriate time. I do believe we need to kind of reach out to the community to hear what's on their mind. There's been a lot of meetings recently. And we need to get back with the city commissioners to find out how they would like to have this committee or group of citizens involved, or however they want to put it together. We all need to be on the same page. So I think this initial group would kind of work with planning and economic development to kind of put this together so we can best see where we're at with it. Initially, just the planning commission or subcommittee of the planning commission could do that work and be prepared to present something to this full city commission as to how we would like to proceed, get their input up front. Your comments, discussion, I appreciate it.
I'll make a motion so we can begin the conversation to form a committee to investigate the RFP and what needs to be included and our methodology for going after proposals.
Can I get support for that?
I'll support that motion.
Commissioner Hensel made the motion, supported by Commissioner McGee. Discussion? How many members would this subcommittee consist of? Should not exceed 4.
What is our limit court based on, it's 4? So I think it should be 4 people, I would recommend,
Yes. And we would meet in a public place. Here.
Well, we don't
Meet
need to
anywhere.
decide the meeting place right now.
Doesn't matter.
Just focus on the motion.
So should we vote on committee, or you want to put people on it all together?
You could also indicate who would be on that subcommittee. The chairman, of course, would be there.
I would like to be on.
Commissioner Henry,
Language is wrong, please.
Commissioner Henson. We need one more.
I would like to do it.
You might quiet over there, Commissioner.
But we have 4, and we wanted to add our director, right?
She's staff, so yes. Okay. I recommend that we meet within the next 2 weeks or sooner if we could work something out. Any additional discussion? Okay, call the roll for the creation.
And I'll just say this doesn't need to be a part of the motion, but if you decide on a time and date and location, I need to know so that I can post it. Okay. The roll call on the motion, Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
Commissioner Henry,
Yes.
Commissioner Hensel,
Yes?
City Manager Mitchell,
Yes.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Chairman Reed,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, we're moving on to commission comments. Anybody have comments to make? Commissioner Marshall?
A couple comments. I see where the city gave whoever this convention center tax abatement. They're down there working on it as we speak. Do they have to come before the planning commission before they start work on it? Or how does this work? They're putting a roof on it now.
825 Riverview, they request a permit to replace the roof.
What's that?
property, the old chemical bank building, 825.
Chemical plant is,
All
Okay.
phase.
All phase. Yeah. All phase.
They were there, the other day putting a new roof on, never pulled a permit, so they come and got one.
Oh, they did get one. Okay.
So they are in compliance.
But, excuse me, yes, do you want to say something?
Mm.
So, that's a substantially new use for that building. Doesn't that trigger a requirement for a site plan review?
I don't know.
We
what
don't know if there's
they're putting in there,
enough
all I know
parking,
is-
we don't know, you know, any of the, now that it's gonna be a major rehabilitation, what codes have changed and need to be dealt with, like the changes in the zoning ordinance that happened in 2012. The building's been there for 50 years.
Yeah.
So with the significant changes in the use,
We need to find out what they're gonna use it. We haven't heard a thing.
or how they're gonna use the property.
Well, I can tell you that it got passed as a business district to get credits on. I'm not sure exactly what that district is called, but sounds like to me that they have everything they needed in that state. But for them to start working on it and been working on it for weeks, months, and they haven't gotten a permit, and they come here and tell us all how good stewards they're gonna be, and they don't even come and get a permit. And this work has been going on for a long time. Demo and all sorts of things.
Well, the inside of the building is completely empty. Nothing's been going on in there.
Yes, they have. I've seen the work. They've been inside demoing, taking out stuff.
Well, they're not supposed to do that without a permit.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This company is here, and we've given them all the breaks that we could give them, and they still disrespect us by not getting permits. And I know in Chicago, you get a permit to breathe if you go and start doing some development. And this person is from Chicago. So,
City manager? City manager, do we have you
Yes,
instruct them to go take a look and see
we
what's
will,
going on?
we will find out exactly what they have
Okay.
The other,
and don't have.
Comment. After you,
okay, the other thing is, I'm looking at this apps report. I was absent last month, but I was absent on behalf of the city. I was at a conference out of town for the planning commission, not planning, the housing commission. And I called Mr. Reed and told him that I would be absent, but I'm still marked. So that's not, how does it, I'm confused here.
Commissioner Marshall, that wasn't communicated to me, and that was what we talked about at the last meeting, that I need to know
Okay.
from Chairman Reed,
So
you know,
you
was
didn't-
absent, I did not know.
So
So,
two things.
so, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. All right, the other thing is, I'm going to be asking the commission, this commission for a leave of absence. I'm going to be gone for 3 months, and I don't want to just be missed. I want to leave of absence. And one more thing, there have been several occasions where we've been here when there wasn't a quorum. Do we get credit in case we do miss against that? In other words, if I come here, there is no quorum, I miss the next meeting, should it balance out? Should that be even?
Perhaps it's my misunderstanding. If a body is here, you're here. If the body is not here, you're absent. Now, the question might be, is it an approved absence? And if so, do we put it on the sheet. So the sheet to me just tells whether or not bodies were in the commission room. It doesn't tell me nothing else. So how do we treat it as far as record keeping goes? Do we mark it present by not putting a mark on it?
Well, right, that's what I've been doing. So on the report, if you communicate to me that someone has talked to you about their absence, it would be as excused.
And we should put an E instead of an X.
But it's actually written out. If you look at the report, one of the reports from last year, it said excused. All the absences from Commissioner Shaw when you had the public hearing, after that, it was reflected as excused. So this is a new monthly report. You haven't reported to me anyone that you talked to where the absences should be excused. So that needs to come from you to me.
And that brings up a very interesting point. Commissioner Shaw had a letter sent on his behalf indicating that he would not be present. Well, not that he would not be present, indicating he was present someplace else. However, in the letter, there's no mention of him asking to be excused. It's simply telling us where he was at. Does that constitute something that we as a group need to face?
I mean, maybe in my suggestion, you could reach out to him, and I don't know, that's up to the planning commission, but however it goes, the end result, you'll have to communicate it to me so that it's accurately reflected on the report.
Okay, this is something we'll have to work out amongst ourselves.
Excuse me.
Let me complete this thought by Commissioner Marshall. According to this, Commissioner Shaw has not been here for the last two meetings, last one and this one. Now, if he misses another meeting anytime within the next fiscal year, according to the chart, he would be non-feasance. Now, that's something we need to look at when it occurs. But the issue is simple. We need a quorum to conduct the city's business. If for any legitimate reason a person can't attend, and this is something they know in advance that they're not going to be able to do, they're placeholding. They're holding down a spot where we could have someone who could potentially attend. It's not for me to determine how you all want to do that, but the bylaws are quite clear as to how that should be handled. If somebody's going to be absent and we're going to approve the absence, then it's approved. Now, if it shows up on the sheet that you weren't here, period, regardless of the reason. So if we need to look at the record keeping to decide whether or not we want to put an X behind your name or an E or any other alphabet, then that's just something that we could do for the purpose of record keeping. Now, any approved absence where you're not going to be here, if we all agree, then that's fine. I have no objections to any of that. But if quorums continue to be the problem, I think we need to put something and adhere to whatever we agree on. I'm open for discussion.
Back to my question. When we show up for a meeting and there is no quorum, why can't we get credit for showing up for a meeting when there was no quorum against being absent when we are?
It's how do you want to do it? If there's no meeting, then what is there to report? That
We were here to attend the meeting.
Okay.
It's not our fault that we didn't get a quorum.
As far as record keeping, what the report will show, the members that were present, and in parentheses, it'll say no quorum. So for record keeping, we do keep track of that. So how you want to determine the meetings, that's up to the planning commission.
Is this something we need to discuss further, or is it clear how we want to deal with this?
I say it's follow the bylaws.
Okay. Bylaws, that's state law. We follow state law.
Excuse me, with regard to the upcoming absences, you're giving us plenty of notice going to tell us that it's an important reason that is prompting you to make this announcement. And now we have an opportunity to say to you ahead of time, we're not counting those absences because you've given us plenty of notice. You have a legitimate reason not to be here. And so there should be no blemish on your record. But the three absences is a quarter of the annual requirement according to the state. So going forward, then there could be an issue, but the 3 excused absences, I think wouldn't count against him.
No, I understand that, and actually my conversation was more of a conversation than anything in reality. I know that I can't give you credit for that. I was just having a conversation. But at any rate,
I agree with city clerk that for record keeping, we'll count that as a credit that you were if we have a meeting or not. We did show up. It would simply show who was here and who wasn't. Okay, any additional comments?
So I have one question. So to Commissioner Marshall's point, because he did communicate to you about the last meeting, should we reflect on the monthly report that that meeting was excused? I need to know that for my record.
Yes.
Now, I have a question about Mr. Shaw. You said you received a letter sent to you on his behalf. What did it say about why he didn't come to the meeting?
I will read that letter to you for the record. Kimberly Thompson, City Clerk. It is from M. Shannon Rocket of Site Services Director, Communities and Schools of Michigan and Benton Harbor. Hello, I am verifying that Mr. David Shaw, a volunteer mentor with the Benton Harbor Area School District, was engaged in his weekly student mentoring group on January 7th, 2020, from 11:30 to 1:45 p.m. Mr. Shaw meets regularly with a small group of students weekly on Tuesdays at that time.
Uh-oh.
If you have additional questions, please let me know. Thank you. That's M. Shannon Rocket. This indicates that Mr. Shaw is knowingly and aware that he has a conflict of interest with this body. However, he chose to attend this instead of coming here. That's how I would interpret that. Now, how you all want to do with it, we always vote as a group. Except the fact that he has something else he preferred to do each week, as opposed to attending these meetings once a month. I leave it up to you all. How do you want to do it?
I think we did a good job with our rules and regulations, and we should follow it up. I'd say excuse after the fact is not an excuse. Excuse before the fact, or let you know, Chair, that I'm not going to be here, and you give that consensus that you got that response. But if I don't give you a call at all until after the event, and I tell you that once a month, I'm not going to be here because of other obligations, then I'll just say that let's let the shoe fall where it may.
Are there any additional comments?
So my question is it excused or it's just absent?
What say ye?
Absent from me.
Okay, I just wanted to know if it should be changed. Okay.
Let's say
It
absent.
remains as
Yeah,
it is.
absolutely.
Unanimous.
We are in the commission comments part of this. I noticed this Mr. Bullock is in the audience. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak to him on the record, or y'all wait till after the meeting?
You might wanna let Mr. Bud know what we decided about his application and his site plan review.
Did you want to make any statements, or are you open to questions?
Yeah, I'm open to question. I'll make a
Could you
statement.
come forward, please? It came up that you may or may not still be in business at 420 Pipestone.
Yeah, the building is still operating. Like I said, we got a couple contracts right now. In the wintertime, we just do catering
You only do
Because-
catering.
because it's slower in the wintertime. The last building official that I had talked to, because this is about the parking lot or something?
It's about the,
Sidewalk.
Yeah.
parking lot.
Your site plan.
Well, the sidewalk was, the water company actually tore up that sidewalk in order to run that line. They need to replace that sidewalk portion right there. But around the other part, where I had talked to the building official before he had left, we going to add on to the building. So it was like, it doesn't make a sense because, in the original plans, it was supposed to be a drive-through. But then when it was voted against it, we said we was gonna extend the building out and make a sit down. So the plans are in work for that. So when the last building official left, we discussed it. It doesn't make sense to pour that concrete and then got to tear it back up for that portion. So that's why we end up going with the what you call it, the recycle. We had to put down a recycle for that to make the parking lot. Because code said that's all it requires is the gravel. If I'm not mistaken, you could probably answer that more so as well.
yeah, city manager. Can we get someone from the staff to go out and determine what it is that needs to be done for him to be able to continue to conduct business there? To find out whether or not he's in compliance, okay?
Yes.
And then we can determine where we need to go with this.
Yeah, because everything else is up to code. I already got it. That's why he even gave me the occupancy permit for that building as well. It was just a parking lot. And he was saying that's what we came up to. We decided that it doesn't make no sense. But as far as like health department and everything else, we got our certificates and everything for all that.
It was left open on our contingency schedule here. There was no follow-up, so we were trying to follow up to find out exactly what's going on over there. So you will be contacted by the city official to determine whether or not you're in compliance at this time, okay?
Okay, yeah, nobody never called me or anything. I just looked at the video on YouTube, so I came on up.
I've left you several cards on the door. And you
Oh.
never called me back.
I never seen it I go through the back, in the wintertime, like I said, we do catering, we go through the back door. I never use the front.
Y'all can get together and work that out, okay? Okay. Are there any additional comments?
If I can, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We were talking previously about the new business going in on Riverview, and the request for a subsidy from the city. It, to me, seems to make even more important the need to do the comprehensive update for the master plan. We see people who want to come and do things here and they want to make investments, but when we add our incentives to help them out, it should be because we have a plan and that we are all agreeing to work from as a city. And this one is out, it's been out for a long time, and we've maybe changed our mind about some things, but we have to begin that process before the interest in developing is gone. And so that we end up with something that we want to see in our city. overall. So if we're looking for improved housing and places for businesses, and we're looking at ways of attracting visitors and all the other uses that we use the land for, it's up to us to have an updated plan that can inform the city commission when they're making decisions, but also can inform developers, so when they open the plan, they can see, oh yeah, this is the kind of thing that they're looking for here. So I just want to say, as sooner we can get to the point where we're bringing in public participation and get the process rolling, I think the better.
Okay. I agree. We need to come up with a new master plan. That's where we're at. Any other comments? No comments? Maybe we need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion's made by Commissioner McGee, supported by Commissioner Marshall to adjourn.
Commissioner Hensel,
Yes?
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Henry,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall, City Manager Mitchell,
Yes.
Chairman Reed,
Yes.
motion carries.
Yeah, too long. Richard,
I can say something now.
that,
My portion was about the logo,
The Noble.
the logo. You said they had some kind of a plan to use our water in the future or something. You guys got that in writing?
no, that's not what they said.
But can I get an understanding about that, please?
The town, yeah, the city manager would be in a better position. He was the one who talked with the township. The city has no direct line out there.
Let me
If you can't answer the question for me. Okay.
No, we're not gonna, they're not gonna spend any money to connect to Benton Harbor water. They're gonna continue to use the Benton Township's water.
Well, that wasn't exactly where that agreement went from the beginning. Now that we
No, but
pretty
that,
much had an understanding of that then. Now we're, and you wonder why we come back and then you say we complain. Well, I'm not complaining, I'm just trying to get.
It would take about $1.5 million to run a pipeline out there for that one company, so I don't think they're gonna.
So,
that meeting that you went to for flooding, what organization?
the Federal Flood Administration, whatever they are.
Next time you see that thing,
Okay.
I would have wanted to go to that.
Yeah, well, I don't, the commissioner's officer can say the point of it was to educate people about how things are currently, and then they're changing their maps to update them. Because maps are 1929. The latest updates are from 1988. And now they're working with 2012 data to update. So lots has happened, as we all know, since 1929. If you look at the fire map that shows where the wetlands are,